I know something that Janelle wanted to talk about was about the whole thing about people choosing big law just for the money.
This is something that I wanted to ask the big law folks. I alluded to it before when like people want to do PI and they go into law school and do PI and then they kind of see that price tag and they go to big law. And I'm not speaking about people who know they want to do big law. Like, I think all of you have done your research and that's the kind of work that you want to do. I'm more so thinking about people that don't necessarily have that work experience and are just like, I don't really know what I want to do at all. I'm just going to chase the money. I feel like all of you have a pretty good idea of what you want. And so I'm not really speaking to that. Like, obviously, if you want to do it for the money, you should do it for the money. But I'm more so asking about people who only do it for the money and like don't really have that interest, don't necessarily have that path, but are just like, oh, 180K a year, sign me up.
Those are the people who are probably going to burn out pretty quick. Like for me, the money plays a role in it because I come from a family that's never really had a lot of money, and I could literally change the trajectory of my family if I do what I'm supposed to do and live within my means. Even though I am making a lot of money, you still want to live within your means simply because the debt that I got a really nice size scholarship, but the debt that I will incur is still going to give me a bill, and I got to live within my means until I pay off that bill, and I can then, maybe do what I want if I wanted to splurge a little bit more, something like that. But no, I think that probably would go towards the burnout, but that's kind of, you have to kind of weigh what do you value? Do you value, leisure time, or do you value work time and money? By the time like a utility curve type of thing, it's kind of, you have to kind of dig deep into yourself and know yourself to decide. If you want just money, there's a lot of different fields besides the law that you can go into. Like you could probably trade stocks, you could do forex, you could do real estate, you can do a lot of different things to make a lot of money. So if you wanted to just go to law school to do big law and make a lot of money, that probably is the people who are end up being very miserable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's high risk, high reward. The risk being both the risk of burning out and the debt that you take on. And, I think I've had a couple of friends approach me and ask should I go to law school? And I tell everyone the same thing. It's just, try to get exposure and try to really know yourself, do a lot of research, watch a lot of YouTube. A lot of people don't realize if you want to work big law, you have to be okay with putting in 75 hours a week sort of days. You have to be okay with not being around for your family. You probably can't have pets and hang out with them as much as you want. You might be able to live in a nice place, but you're not going to be there very often. You're going to be doing lunches and dinners in the office. I like that. That's the type of person I am. Put me in my little hole and I will work. I'll work till I drop. That's fine though. That's my personality. And even knowing that about myself, I'm still not even sure if big law is the right fit for me. I'm really lucky I got this fellowship this year where I can try out big law and really get my feet wet before you even go into law school. But, you really never can know. It's high risk, high reward.
Right. Yeah, I feel that now. I work in big law, and I feel that because of the position I'm in, and I'm not actually a lawyer, I don't really feel that burn, that I feel burnt out. Sometimes I work late. I think the latest I've ever worked is 8:30 for a trial. And while I didn't mind doing it, I wasn't exactly thrilled that I kind of missed my entire day. And once I got home, it was like, oh, well, I go to sleep and I gotta get up and do it again tomorrow. So, and I'm a very family oriented person, and I know that once law school is over, I want the chance to, start my life, start a family, and actually be there to interact with them. And I think that's also I guess you could say it's kind of a stigma with big law versus PI. Would you rather be home more so by 5:30, or would you rather, be able to kind of just do what you want? And you can't really have the best of both worlds. You're going to have to sacrifice one thing or another, either more money or more family time. And you kind of just, I don't think that's true overall, but I think that's generally something that you really have to sit and think about because it's not, you really can't have it all. Unfortunately, as much as we would love to, but it's just not feasible with the type of work that different people do. Like, I see lawyers now who are stressed out about being at the office all day, and I know they've got kids at home that they wish they could see because they bring them to the office because they just have to work all the time. So, I think that's a very important distinction to really think about when you're deciding whether or not you want to go into big law or PIs, the time commitment and the stress commitment. And I know a lot of people in big law tend to travel a lot more than PI as well. So you really won't be home if you're having to go halfway across the country or, across the world for a case, and you're going to be gone for a few days to maybe even a few weeks at a time.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. In terms of PI versus big law from a work-life balance perspective, it's not as black and white as if you go to big law, you'll be working a million hours, a week. And there are PI jobs where you're going to be working crazy. Like if you're a public defender in New York, you're going to work all day, weekends, and throughout. So I just want to caveat that as well. And, also, it's very location based. So in terms of work-life balance as well. So New York is known to be, the sweatshop for big law. Vanderbilt sends the majority, not the majority, but the highest number of their students to New York. And that's one of the things that I was having a gripe with myself, just understanding that, if you do go, back to New York where I am currently, you will have to work harder, say, than if you were to choose to go to Atlanta or, another satellite location. So like, I think people should be very mindful of the locations that they target. So you'll see that a lot of major markets like the New York, Chicago's of the world, may be working a bit longer and harder just because of the nature of the deals that are in those locations.
Do you guys, for like the big law people, I wanted to ask this earlier, but do you guys look at the LARP, was that the debt relief program? Did that factor into your decisions? And also, does your location for placement also factor into where you want to go to school?
A location definitely did, because of course I had to be in LA, Atlanta, or New York, and then maybe DC for me. Those are like the top places for entertainment. And then as far as like repayment programs, I don't think there really are repayment programs for big law besides your own money. So
I didn't think there was, but I wanted to double check before I went along with that assumption.
Yeah, the one at Georgetown, if you don't work for a 501c3 or a government agency or some other sort of approved public interest job, you don't get that money. But it's also, when you think about it, it's fair, because if you're working in the private industry, the assumption is that you're making
more money.
You're making that 6-figure salary where you can afford to pay off your own loans. So it makes more sense to save the limited funds that they have for the people who will need it. Because I guess the fear is that if you don't incentivize going into public interest, people might not, because it becomes financially impossible.
Yeah, I think one thing that I started doing with my mentors this past week, and I was telling him about like the amount of scholarship I got and how it helped me kind of make a decision. He was like, well, you do kind of understand, it might mean a lot to you now, the debt thing, and maybe in 10 years, it'll mean a whole lot less. That amount of money will mean a whole lot less to you in about 10 years, So the debt thing, going into like big law, or just going into corporate law, period, it means something to us. Well, it means something to me now because I've never seen that amount of money. But in 10 years, whenever I'm working and I've been able to invest and do a lot of other things, then I don't think it will mean as much anymore to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to say, I think people need to keep in mind that when we talk about debt, it's when you're like, I know a lot of people say, oh, you won't be able to start your life. You won't be able to get a house. You won't be able to get the car you want. You won't be able to travel. But you need to keep in mind that it's about your debt to income ratio, and it's about the actual payment that you're paying every month.
I was going to say too that like for entertainment, there's also the option to work in-house counsel. So, there's the there's a lot of different like ways you can be a lawyer and a lot of different options. You kind of want to know the people that can put you in touch with those spaces or how you can get into them. So for me, having worked in TFA and like in kind of corporate light spaces already, I kind of knew that like I might get into big law and I might hate it, right? So just like someone mentioned, like there are people who they just don't want to do big law. It's not a matter of whether they can or can't. They just simply don't want to. And even the debt is not like compelling enough, it's for them to tackle because they just hate the job that much. So me just like betting that like, hey, as someone who's like a bleeding heart, teaching and education driven, like I might hate it too. Like my instructors, when I first started studying for the LSAT, both of them quit. So like I took that, really to heart because, here they were, they went to great schools, they got into very competitive schools. They're really good at the LSAT and they became lawyers in big law and literally were just like, it's not for me. I quit. I hate my job. Like, one guy was like, my boss called me on Sunday and was like, can you have this Monday morning? And I was just like, I realized it just wasn't for me. Which is why I considered being at a PI kind of interested school with like that option as well. Just kind of learning the field in terms of like where I want to go. It all depends on where you want to go and finding out the key way to get there. And then there's also like a range of other things in law school that I'm interested in that have nothing to do with money, but it has everything to do with prestige and what, people that I look up to have done. Right. So there's also that. So think about, different things that you might be interested in doing that have nothing to do with money, to be honest, because sometimes when you live that way, you end up where you want to be and you end up in a fulfilled space. And, it's funny, this came up because I've been thinking about the next 10 years and I'm like, well, what do I really want to do? So, giving yourself the options is, I think, what I advocate for as best as possible, as many options as you can. But with entertainment law, you can work in-house for a business. If you have strong business skills, that's also something else that could be utilized in a job as well. A JD looks good in education if you're thinking about going into higher ed, if you're thinking about higher ed administration. So there could be a range of reasons why you do it, but keeping that in mind, especially with the school you select.
Again, I'll always say it's all about exposure. Do internships. If you're working right now, talk to the lawyers at your job. There's the SEO fellowship that I'm doing this summer. You can apply to that before your 1L year and you get to work at a big law firm as a summer associate before you even start law school. And that's really helpful because, if you're not sure or if you just want the exposure to make sure that you are sure, that could be the difference between, finding your passion and making a $300,000 mistake. And, something that I was told that I tell everyone as well is, people say that a JD opens a lot of options, and it does within the legal profession. So if you're not 100% sure that you want to be a lawyer or teach lawyers or work with lawyers, don't go to law school. I know a lot of people who say that, I just like learning about the law or I like watching Law and Order, so I'm going to go to law school. And you don't want to do that because you kind of have to assume that you're going to be a lawyer of some sort. Those other jobs are kind of few and far between. So just exposure. It's okay to take years off in between school. I did. And, I know for certain, I would not be at the school that I'm at with the fellowship that I have and the scholarship that I have if I went straight into law school right out of undergrad or right when I started thinking about it. It's all about exposure. It's all about learning your options.
I agree. Same here.
Yeah, I agree as well in terms of taking time off. It's probably it happened to me ironically because I didn't know that I was going to go to law school eventually, but that's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Obviously it happened to me differently. Other people will be doing different things after school, but, I've been able to, buy a home and do a lot of different life event things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I just gone straight to school and, accrued debt.
So I only took 1 year off. I graduated a year ago, like 2 days ago. So I didn't have that much experience, and I'll admit that. But I am also kind of jumping back in because the real world terrifies me, and I'm ready to go back into school. But I also, I took a year off, and I'm serving with the AmeriCorps right now, and I'm really, really happy I did that because it kind of affirmed that I did want to go to law school. I've been able to meet so many people through my job and just through networking with different people that is reaffirming that passion, but it also helped me narrow down what I wanted to do within law and what I wanted to do with my degree. I kind of started this year off and I was like, I want to go to law school, but like, why do I want to go to law school besides like, it's law school and it seems fun. And through the work that I've done and by taking that year off, I've been able to reflect and be like, okay, like I am making the right decision and here's what I want to do. And I've been able to take those steps and meet those people that I know will give me a certain leg up later on. And I feel way more secure about my decision. And I'm like happy to be moving forward. And I'm so thankful I took the time off so that I am not going to burn out when I get to 1L.
I have a question for the individuals interested in big law. So let's talk about worst case scenario. Let's talk about you graduate, you have the debt, and then you don't get into big law. How would you feel?
For me, that's just not an option. First off. Secondly, I think I would still find something that I like to do. I would take that as an opportunity to, instead of maybe going into a big firm, try to go into like, I like sports law too. Like try to get into like a sports agency. That's more of a kind of a grind and grit type of profession. And I would try to work my way up. I think I do a really good job of networking. So I would probably just rely more on my network and do things that way. But I wouldn't be really sad because at the end of the day, nothing's promised, and I've been given a fair shot. So I would, have to look into myself and see maybe what I could have done differently in order to achieve what I set out to achieve. But then I would also, that kind of stuff probably does not happen overnight. I would have, a year and a half to start preparing for not, landing the type of job that I want. And so I would, I'm sure, be able to order my steps in order to still achieve success for what I deem as being successful.
Yeah. So I also wanted to highlight that as well. So in terms of big law, so, just to add additional context to what big law is. So big law is just generally going to the larger firms that are in private practice. But there are a number of firms in private practice that aren't big law, right? So you can go to a mid-sized firm, you can go to a boutique firm, etc. They still have, higher paying salaries as well. You'll still make six figures at many of them. Some even match, what is market pay at some of the larger firms. So, don't think that if you don't go to big law that you're going to be making $10 an hour. It's just not true. In terms of what I would do if I didn't go to big law, again, like I completely understand that I'm in a privileged position, but I'm also going to the business school at Vanderbilt. So I recently got into the Master's in Finance program there. Appreciate it. So I still able to graduate within the 3 years, and I'm going to have an additional credential. So worst comes to worst, I could always just jump back into consulting, and I'm also going on an educational leave. So worst comes to worst, I'm thankful to have like a six-figure job that I could go back to. But in terms of, just targeting different firms and so forth, I refuse to fail. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not going to. And the reason being is because there are a number of ways that you can get big law outside of your generic OCI. And, it includes mass mailing, it includes networking, it includes, just reaching out to folks and just landing that interview. And as long as it's a possibility, I'm going to make sure that I do it.
Yep. KJ?
For me, yeah, similarly, like I'm already planning, like I already mentioned, like a part of my decision process was thinking about that long-term decision and how I could make that happen. But for me, I think I'm also just considering like making big law an option. I think like I've gotten myself into a place where that can be a reality. And so I think when I think about just kind of doing my best and being happy with where that lands me and then following, my passions next, I just kind of like to have everything, all my bases covered. So there's Big Law, but like someone mentioned, there's other firms. And then more importantly for me, as someone who wants to do entertainment, there's in-house counsel, which I might actually consider before Big Law, actually, because it more gets to what I want to do and the people I want to work with. So yeah, I don't plan on having it kind of, all that money go out my grasp, but I got some options, and there's also clerkships. There's also, I'm in at Stern Business School too at NYU. So there's also like business stuff, Goldman Sachs, different stuff, that we'll be able to do. So yeah, just trying to keep your hand. That's my advice. Just keep your hand, like Latasia, like do YouTube, do this, do that. You know what I mean? Like, because it's the same mentality that got you, like, to apply. You got to keep that, regardless of whether you're on top of class, bottom of class, Big Law, whatever the case might be. Like, you can do it. You know what I mean? Like, whatever it is that you set out to do, because you already got this far. So
yeah, I'm lucky. I'm leaving the government, and I have a really great relationship with, I'm leaving the Department of Energy, the National Nuclear Security Administration. So I feel that I could very easily walk back there with a JD in hand. Department of Energy probably doesn't have the same benefits as Department of Justice, and I'm lucky again, national security law. There's a lot of private sector applications, but you can also really easily pivot with those same interests and go over to DOJ, FBI, sort of any of the big 4-letter, 3-letter agencies there. So I think that would be my backup, would kind of go back to my roots in my master's, sort of fall back on that. But again, I'm hoping failure is not an option. I'm doing everything I can to set myself up so that I have those options, and I can, hopefully I'll have, the dream is in 3 years I have my pick of firms, speak it in existence there. But, I'm going to try to do everything in my power to make sure that Big Law does happen. But, I can see myself going back to government, or maybe a mid-sized firm if they have international law.
And just to jump in, Latasia, like, doing well in law school is also not a promise, like someone that's like that's something I came to realize too. Like, it's scaled. Like, it's not like, oh, you worked hard, A. Like, it's like, no, certain people are getting A's and then you're getting a B. It's like, so then it's like, there's no promising that, like, if they're like, they go to your class like to a certain percent and you're not in there, then like that's just it, right? So it's like, you always want to keep options, because it isn't guaranteed that you're going to do well, just based on the fact that it's a scale. So yeah, definitely keep options.
That's gonna be one of my biggest fears, is the scaling in law school, just because you have to be aware of not only what other people are, how other people are doing, but you also have to be mindful of what the professor wants, because that's really how they're going to be grading it, is based off of what they want to see. So I went to my teacher's office hours all through undergrad, so they all knew me by first name, and I plan on doing the same thing in law school, because I plan on being at the top of the class. With that being said, I totally agree. It's not a guarantee. But honestly, I think if you have the work ethic, because you've gotten this far, you studied for the LSAT, you sat through hundreds of thousands of application material trying to make it the best you possibly can. I think being in school isn't going to be the worst thing in the world. It's hard. We all know it's going to be hard. But, and I personally think if you had that gap year and you've had a chance to work, gotten more experience, I think that'll be beneficial as well. But it's not going to be the end of the world if you're not the top person in your class or even in the top 15. As long as you know within yourself personally that you did your best and that you put forth 110% effort, then it'll be fine. You're gonna end up where you're supposed to end up, regardless of what happens.
But be in the top, though. Now I'm playing.
We are trying to be at the top, though. At the top of the class, so I can hold the banner at graduation.
You still want to try, But yeah,
I just need top 50.
Nah, I'm living for that. Alyssa said that was smart. Like 50%, like top 50% can't go wrong. That's true though.
Like, I know I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm never the smartest person in the room. There's always going to be someone smarter than me, harder working than me. Like, that's just a fact of life. But it's kind of like, you ever hear the joke, like, you don't have to to not get caught by a tiger or something. I don't have to run faster than the tiger. I just got to run faster than the person.
Run faster than you.
That's why you'll catch me in office hours. You'll catch me at networking events because, like, if my grades aren't there, the connections will be.
Right.
Like, that's my plan. Like, I am going to meet people. I'm going to know people. My professors are going to love me like they did in undergrad. And if my grades aren't there and the opportunities aren't there, I'm just going to, text a mentor and be like, hey, how you doing?
Also, when just in terms of like ranking and stuff, as we're talking about big law, if you go to an ABA accredited school and you graduate at the top of your class, you're going to get big law if you go out and try to get it. So I do want to, make sure that we're not having like a super like elite kind of conversation, just because though you're going to see people in those spaces as well that aren't in those top schools. Also, but there is where ranking comes in, and I specifically when it comes to corporate recruiting, and I want to highlight those 3 places. And I kind of like sat there and just in speaking to all these hiring managers at these top firms and just in speaking to people, I wanted to just highlight that for anybody that's looking to go into, those spaces. So first and foremost, like where it comes in that I've seen is what we mentioned earlier in terms of where firms recruit, right? So as we mentioned earlier, like there are a number of schools that traditionally firms have gone to recruit. Whether or not that's T14, T20, T30, whatever it is, there is an arbitrary, number of schools that they go to. That's just very frank, and you can go to NALP and you can see that. There's a heavy correlation with ranking, as I've seen. What I've seen so far, and you guys can go and look for yourselves, is that they generally go to T20 and then the strong regional schools beyond that for those specific office locations, as well as, Howard and other schools that they deem reputable from other kinds of perspectives as well. Second, after you get there and you have your OCI, right? So there's a lottery system, and we kind of highlighted it earlier. Not every school has a lottery system. So there are about 30 or so schools, or 25 or 30, I forget how many, that have a lottery system where you can bid on firms blindly. That's a huge, piece of the process as it comes to big law recruiting, just because, the lottery system works like this. You are able to get a list from your school about all of the big law firms that are coming to campus. And you as a student, you're allowed to rank them, usually about like 50 or so places, right? And if you rank a school very high, for instance, a firm very high, for instance, like Cravath, let's say they're going to your school, they have 10 interview slots. All 10 of the students that rank them the highest will all get an interview, no matter what their grades are, and no matter, how they've been doing. So you have 10 folks, they ranked Cravath number 1, and only 10 of those people rank them number 1, so they're all going to get their interview. Now, where the ranking comes in beyond that is what they call GPA floors, right? So each firm has a GPA floor for each school that they do not publish. So they don't tell people what these GPA floors are, and it will determine whether or not you get a callback, right? So let's say Cravath like sets a GPA floor for Emory for, you have to have a 3.5. If you bid and you got the interview and you have a 3.0, you're not going to get a callback unless you had like some superstar interview. So you what they call wasted a bid and bidding on Cravath because of their GPA floor. Though there's a heavy correlation with ranking in terms of those GPA floors. And, you're not going to get those published. If you know somebody in HR at these firms, etc., they may share those with you, but they're not supposed to. And then beyond that, honestly, it just comes down to just being able to get an interview slot and just going to a school that has that lottery system means a lot. And just speaking to the CSO of your school and just asking them what the recruiting process is as it regards to big law will help you a lot in terms of, selecting a school that's going to give you the best chance to do well. And schools also publish like the GPAs of students that got those jobs as well to you privately. So like you should ask them like, all right, if I get a 3.3 here, like, have you seen students go on to, Gibson Dun Crusher? Like, is that possible? And they'll be frank with you. And you should start to have those conversations even at the application stage, just because it would help you so much in terms of not wasting your money and applying to schools that may not give you the best chance to do what you want to do.
What he was saying about the rankings and just kind of giving yourself more options because of how things go behind the scenes, just to consider that as well. And just to know, like, big law isn't kind of, again, the end all be all. I don't think most people, particularly from our communities, when they think about being a lawyer, it's about working at a firm. So if you've got like a heart passion to, do something as it pertains to the law, that doesn't have anything to do with like big law or corporate law, that's dope as well. I would be doing this. I mean, entertainment law, interested, but I would be also trying to be a lawyer, even if those weren't options, So that should be something that you consider as well, because you can do almost anything. If you're going to convince yourself that you want a certain path, though, then you're going to have to play that game with that path, and be ready for that.
Right. And I think it's important to remember here, we didn't discuss this, but you could also be a solo practitioner. Of course, that takes a little money up front, but that's an option. So don't forget about that option either. Did anyone have any final words, final thoughts for the viewers?
So I'm going to share with Latasia an email address, just so if people are checking this out, they can hit me up if they want help with their application. So I just got done, so I'm not like trying to go so hard yet. But if there are folks out there that want, I'll share the email with Latasia. I did get into some pretty cool schools and some money, so you can trust me. And I got some cool mentors that help me as well, that I'll be able to, bounce ideas off of for your application as well. So if a person out there, particularly brothers of color, if you're trying to do this, MBA also something I could work with, did a couple fellowships, can help you with that application process for sure.
Anyone else?
I just want to add also, go to the school that you're going to be happy at. We've been talking a lot about like corporate stuff, but like, honestly, you won't even finish school if you're not happy there. So your happiness is a huge part of this like decision-making process for where you apply to, or even like where you go. I've spoken to so many people, and one of the core things that they've said is that they've always had a moment where they wanted to drop out. So you don't want to have that thought in a place where you're unhappy. Just to add.
And just to kind of touch on that, I don't think we really got to talking about location that much in our conversation. And for me, Georgetown was number one for me because I wanted to be in DC. I love DC. I want to work in DC. I see myself in 20 years working in DC. I see myself dying in a retirement home in DC. If you want to practice in New York, like, yeah, you can get to New York a bunch of different ways. But if you're, I would say for anything outside of New York, if you're thinking LA, if you're thinking Atlanta, if you're thinking DC, really just think about your location. Think about, you're going to be living here for 3 years. Like, I did my master's in Pittsburgh, and I got family from Pittsburgh. I'm from Pennsylvania. So it was easy for me. I loved it. But I had a lot of people who really struggled living in Pittsburgh for 2 years. And that was only 2 years. So, you really have to consider location too. Like, don't sleep on location. I know, like, I don't want to pick on Michigan. I know Michigan is a great school and a lot of people love it, but they do not mesh well with Ann Arbor. So, absolutely, like Jeffrey said, go visit. Make sure you'll be happy there, Like, you're not going to get a lot of free time, but in your small amount of free time, how do you want to spend that? Like, I love doing brunch with my friends. Coincidentally, almost all of my friends live in DC. So I know that I will be able to go and get brunch with my best and closest friends. And that's probably going to be one of the things that gets me through law school. It's all, you really got to consider the lifestyle too.
I agree. I think location plays a big part into it. I think people just really need to go to the best school for them. Like, you shouldn't base it off of just ranking. You shouldn't base it off of just location. You shouldn't base it off of just what type of law you want to practice. It's the full picture. You have to be happy there for 3 years, and you have to be happy with the outcome.
Just like in sports, sports isn't played on paper. So you're not going to go to law school and find a job just specifically on paper, like literally on paper. So the numbers are not the end all be all. You are you, and like you have never went to any of these schools personally. You don't know. You can't base your experience off other people. You can't base your outcome off of the numbers. Just really decide for yourself and be able to live with your decision. Like, at the end of the day, you don't want to say what if type of thing. So just kind of stay true to you.
And I haven't seen too much of this, but I've heard of it every now and then. If you're going to law school with, at the same time as somebody or you've got your family talking in your ear, don't let that be the deciding factor. If you don't have any kids, you're not married, you don't really have anything tying you somewhere, and you don't really want to stay, don't let other people keep you where you should be. If you have the opportunity to go out and explore, go somewhere. If you got to move all the way across to the other side of the country, by all means, go for it. Even if your mom is going to be upset with you, she'll get over it, because you can come back. There's nothing going to be holding you there. You can go anywhere in the country to get an education in law school, and you can move to wherever you want to practice. You can take the bar in any state. So don't listen to other people saying, oh, you need to go here, you should go there. I think you should come to law school. No. Go where you want to go. Meet new people. Make some new friends. Go outside. Don't stay in your apartment all day cramming in the books because you think you're going to fail. Just go be a free little butterfly.
Yeah, I want to add to that and say, like, in making that decision yourself, like, all of that location, all of that stuff, like, don't understate the importance of where you are and your community outside of the law school. Because I think it's easy to laser focus and say, oh, I love the people at this law school. I love the people that I've met through networking events or whatever. But, like, do you have that same community, that same network outside of the law school? Because at some point, you're going to want to be able to vent to someone who's not associated with the law school just for that comfort, whether that's family, whether that's friends. Like, you might want to be able to go to brunch with people who aren't law students so that you can actually escape law for the weekend. And I think, like, it could be difficult to just, depending on the type of person you are, to be constantly be surrounded by that. So just just think about every part of that decision. Especially, like, if you love to explore new places, then it might be worth it for you to go to the other coast. That may be what you need. You may need to experience that new thing. Maybe you need to be close to family for various reasons. Maybe you want to be close to friends. Maybe you want to stay in the same city. But those are all things that, like, in terms of location, in terms of the school you're going to, it's much more than just the school and just the programs and just the classes, because you're going to be living there for 3 years. And you want to know that you'll be happy living in that city for 3 years or more if you decide to stay.
Yeah, I agree. And then another thing I think that we didn't touch on, though, but you also need to look up, like, the other things about the school. I think, KJ, you did talk about this, but you need to look up, like, the other activities at the school, the clinics, the externships, the societies, things like that as well. Because you're going to be studying all the time, but you're also going to want to do other things. And so you need to make sure that the school has other things you're interested in as well. Even if it's just like a running club, it could be something as small as that.
I saw some schools that had, I think it was Miami, but they had I think it was a sports tournament or something, like, with all, like, the med school, the law school, the graduate school, like, they all would get together and go have, like, a softball game or have, like, a game night or something. I said, you know what, I could actually do that. I can go. My best friend could be a doctor somewhere down in the other school, and I would never have known had I not stepped outside the law school. So, look, and you might find your babe in the medical school. Go for it.
Yeah, you drive that boat yourself. Like, you drive your own boat. Captain your own ship.
Okay. That was good final words. So thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. I think this was a really good video. Really good opinions here. So if you guys want to say bye to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, so that's the video. I will say one thing I do want to reiterate is that keep in mind that T14 or bust, big law or bust, public interest or bust, whatever you're thinking, keep in mind you really do need to just choose the school that's best for you. Keep in mind that what everybody else is thinking, what I think, what anybody else in the panel thought, is not really going to be the same for you. So choose the best school for you, choose the best location, the best program, the best debt situation you want to be in. Just consider all factors. Get a spreadsheet like I did in one of my past videos. You can go back and watch those videos, but get a spreadsheet, think about what's important to you, and choose a school based off of that, and just make sure that you'll be happy with your decision in 3 years, 10 years, and hopefully 20 or 30 years. So that's pretty much it, guys. My next video will probably be my vlog from LA, and then also you'll have some videos coming up on credit, how I'm paying for law school, a couple of other videos. So of course, if you're interested, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell, all of that, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye, y'all.